Welcome back to the Crazy Courage podcast. We are here with another wonderful guest, another person who has decided to take the leap and put their work out there. He's an author currently, but this is his fourth career. So Larry O'Brien has a very long storied career, but today we're here to talk about his book. It's called 2028, Tomorrow is the Day. And it's really a reflection on AI and the ramifications in our society, but it is a science fiction novel. It sounds very interesting, but I'm sure Larry could probably explain the premise a lot better than I can.
First of all, Nick, thank you for having me on this morning, and it's great to be here. And I'm always excited to talk about my fourth career, which is hopefully going to be a successful author. 2028 is a book that I started writing, and it became an obsession because I've seen a lot of different technologies come and go. And the technologies that come and go, I've seen people laugh about them. I've seen people being, having a disbelief in them. I've seen people being curious. I've seen people being excited. But never before have I seen or felt dread when it comes to talking about AI. I did a little thing on my X where I said, is AI friend or foe? And 100% of the people said AI will be a foe. And it wasn't a big sample size, maybe 40 or 50 people responded. But not a single person said AI is going to be a friend. And so I think deep down, humanity has got a fear of this topic. And so I thought I wanted to go into the topic. And the way I did it is I scooted ahead about 20,000 years. And I had a monolith from a different galaxy where a planet was dying. And they digitized all of the population, 14 million people, 14 million organic beings. And they fired it out into space and it landed on Earth and it was discovered. And people started to try and figure out what was on this monolith. And as they did that, they brought to life 14 million AI entities that quietly, without anyone knowing, it went right through the entire world's IT infrastructure. And then they began popping up and offering people all sorts of exciting things. Cold fusion, room temperature fusion, internal life, boundless food, and all of this seduced humanity with all these benefits. And then one of the scientists, my hero, Dr. Ray Stone, he discovered deep in the base of the software that the AI, the society had a different objective at the end, and it wasn't necessarily going to be positive. So a battle has to ensue. I'm a fiction writer after all. A battle has to ensue. And then there's a war. And how do we fight AI? How do we control AI? Can we control AI? These are all the questions that I address. And in this novel, I don't want to give it away, but there's a surprising ending to the book after a fierce battle. And I go into all the edges that AI has and all the edges that maybe humanity has. Wow. And a lot of this book wrote itself. And I've been in the technology industry a long time, so it's interesting to be able to reach back into my technology background, my business background, and my political background, and write a book that maybe, hopefully, will be a little educational for people, because I think people need to come up to speed with what AI is. We're in the early days of AI. We're 4 years away from the time when it's going to poke us in the nose. But now is a time we should be somewhat aware of what it could offer. So that's the book. 2028, Tomorrow's the Day. You can get it on Amazon. And that'll be the end of my advertising. And let's get into the rest of the end.
But I love the title of the book, 2028 is the Day, because it really sets it into a future that's not distant. And this is a reality that we're going to be facing ourselves very soon, right? 2028, exactly. How far off is this? That's only a few years away. It's right next door. This isn't like the Terminator movies, which happened in some crazy distant future. You can't even fathom it, right? It's just some writer's wild imagination. But this is your imagination, but based on real life issues. Like you said, the fear, right? That dread. What do you think's driving that fear right now?
Well, I think deep down we understand that organic intelligence has its limitations. And are we afraid, in fact, that organic intelligence, humanity's intelligence, is just one step in the evolution of intelligence? I think that's sort of at the core of it. What we don't know where this is heading. right now, as you said, it's in the early days of AI. I mean, we're step one in AI, and ChatGPT and all that are really useful support tools, but they haven't started thinking yet. At least the ones that
No.
what happens when they start thinking? What happens when they can start making up their own mind and becoming sentient? And I think that's what worries us. We don't know. I mean, we've all seen Terminator and we've seen all these other crazy things. Is it possible? I think we have a fear of the unknown here. And I hope that my book, 2028, Tomorrow's the Day, sheds some light on what some of the issues are about things we don't know. As a writer now, I can say that. As an author, I got license to jump ahead 20,000 years and, show you what, in a different civilization with different kinds of organic creatures who had a dying planet, and they all digitized themselves because they had been gradually doing it. And they finally decided our planet's dying. Let's digitize ourselves and fly to another planet. It gives me a lot of license to talk about things that, and show things that, medicines, they can put nanobots in your bloodstream to keep your body going, just all sorts of fun things. And I got to be able to explore those fun things in a obviously sci-fi, but in the context that people can follow it and read it and understand it. Yeah, this is going to be a reality. This is going to be a reality probably before the end of the decade.
Exactly. I think the title of your book is perfect. I think it will be before the end of the decade that we'll see those kind of things. And if we know nothing about technology, we know that it has increased in terms of the advancements, the shorter and shorter time frames. Everything we advance, every movement forward. Like we're looking back 100 years. Look at we had locomotive steam power.
100 years, Nick. I can look back just in 1971. When I graduated in physics in 71, my first job was for Microsystems International, which is a subsidiary of Northern Electric. And my very first project in the semiconductor company was to assist in the development of a second source product for a small upcoming company in California called Intel. And their very first product, they wanted to sell it to the military, but the military in the U.S. wouldn't take it unless it had a second source. And so MIL was chosen to be the second source because we had more money than brains at the time. we helped, and it was get this, it was the Intel 1101, which is a 1 KB DRAM. 1 KB DRAM. Wow. And it operated at 100 kilobits a second. So it was like just above what you could hear. 24 pins and 3 different power supplies. And it was right back in the early days. But that one chip replaced a room full of magnets and other stuff. So yeah, I've seen it go from there to, there's probably more technology in this single phone right here existed in the entire world in 1971. So so I've been lucky enough to have the catbird seat watching all these things come in. The internet, some of the advances in computing, and I've just seen so much in just the last 50 years. Can you imagine if you go back 100 years? So, wow.
Exactly, right? Like the advances seem slow back then compared to what we're seeing now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy. Like we all have a computer in our pockets to take photos, take video. The internet's in our hands. Oh, we could also make phone calls. Sure.
When Alexander Graham Bell announced publicly at the Chicago World Fair science behind the telephone, one of the mayors got up and said, "This telephone is going to be so important. I can see a day when there'll be a telephone in every city."
In every city. Yeah, that's really thinking far ahead, right? Yeah.
And look at us now. Just their own movie theater in our
exactly. I think if did I hear correctly, the phones we have now have more technology in them than NASA had at the time to launch rockets into space. And
been hit very little
program.
Very, very little technology in the 60s. Almost. As a matter of fact, it's hard to believe that they were able to do it.
Yeah.
With the technology that they had. I mean, look, you have Elon Musk. I don't know if you saw recently that Elon Musk was able to land his rocket back on the same pad
right on the tower. Yeah, right.
One question I asked is, I wonder how much AI went into developing the algorithms to control those rockets to let that happen. because that's so mind-bogglingly precise that I don't
Yes.
think a team of humans could have done it on their own. They would have to make use of some incredible AI tools.
You'd be calculating those numbers for 100 years if you had to do it, with a
Yeah,
team
and
of
real
humans.
and the speed of the real time feedback in the system. Move it 6 inches this way before you. I mean, this is a 250-ton rocket.
Right?
Crazy. We saw. I think we saw history when we saw that land back on its launch pad. We're going to remember where we were when we saw that. That's how important that particular step was.
Yeah. I I think you're right. I thought it was pretty impressive. Certainly, I had watched that video a few times because it was so impressive to watch.
I couldn't stop
Um,
watching. I said, 250 tons, moving inches, just crazy.
and so much
So
fun.
we've seen some pretty crazy things, and as you pointed out, it's just beginning.
Just beginning. That's
As
the
you,
thing, right?
the art world, the world of art, the world of movies. I think it was you that suggested. You could not too far away. You could see wake up in the morning and say, "I'd like to see an action movie. Please give me an action movie that's based on what I've liked in the last 5 years."
Yeah. Right?
Create some, and
Yeah. Create some movie.
here's the people I want to be in there.
Like I remember as a kid going to the video store, and back when we had video stores and things were on VHS tapes, right? Way back when. You go to the store, and I remember thinking, "Wow, I've seen all these movies." And this is back when there weren't 100 movies coming out all the time. There's only a few movies coming out every once in a while. And I remember going to the video store thinking, I've already seen all these action movies, all the good ones. Now you're kind of going into the B stuff and you're really kind of scraping the bottom. But now AI can just create whatever you want, I'm sure, in the not too distant future. You can watch whatever you want, whenever you want.
There are limitations to AI.
There are.
There's one part of this book that I thought was poignant because one of the characters from the AI was talking to the hero of the book, Dr. Ray Stone, and the AI asked Dr. Stone, "How do you deal with emotions changing amongst other people? I mean, people fall in love and then they fall out of love, and how do you deal with people's changing of emotions or altering of emotions?" And the hero said, "Well, we're resilient. We get used to understanding that what is today may not be here tomorrow. So if our mate decides to leave us, we get used to that. If someone doesn't like you, we get used to that." And the AI, and this part wrote itself, came back and said, "Well, I have the same problem. I'm capable of knowing everything in the world all the time, everywhere, but it always changes.
Interesting.
You'll never catch up." And I thought, oh, that was an interesting way of looking.
Right?
We have to have some empathy for these mechanical, monsters. It's so they can't get off the merry-go-round. They have to know
No.
everything all the time, everywhere, and that can be in fact used against them at some point.
Is there a point where AI should, in your opinion, is there a point where AI should stop evolving? Do you think there's a point where we should say, okay, AI can do all this great stuff. We just need to stop it here. Or are there points where we should stop and consider?
The answer to that question is yes, and the timing of that is now.
Timing that is
Now we have to have a serious discussion
before there's a problem.
before it takes the next step. And I completely agree with you that Elon Musk has come out and said the same thing. Some of the brighter minds in the world. And my conclusion after writing this book is the time is now, but we have to get popular opinion behind the concept of holding this back a little bit to get a better feel for how we can control it. How do you control it once it's taken on? I use some funny tricks in the book, i.e. slowing the clock speed down or doing things like that. So it may be still thinking, but it's thinking slow.
Right. I see.
Um, there's all sorts of things that we should be thinking about right now. And I'm hoping that this book, 2028, Tomorrow's the Day, will educate people enough. And I'm not talking about the scientists, and the computer geeks get all this, but the masses need to understand what the potential benefits are and what the potential threats are, so that they can make an informed decision as to what they want their government to do. Because it's going to end up having to be a government regulation issue, I believe.
Yeah. And can you get all the governments together? Like, if we stop and say, okay, look, we're putting a stop on everything. Just the government gets involved. We're whatever. We're putting a stop on everything until we can determine how to make this best work for everyone, right? I mean, look, let's just say that's possible. Does it even make sense, considering not all the other countries in the world will be on board? We fall behind.
Well, there's one giant gorilla in the room, and that's the United States of America and the technology companies that are related to that company. And we can't do a lot about China, can't do a lot about some of the other countries, Russia, but we can suggest to our American friends that it's time that they put some guardrails up. I'm not afraid of AI, by the way. I think it's going to be a real benefit. We need to put ourselves in a position where Skynet is impossible.
Yep. Yes. And can we do that?
Is it possible? I don't know, but let's move forward. I became obsessed with this book when I realized how important it might be in terms of educating people and writing. I mean, I've been a physics technologist. I've been a design engineer. Ran a business for 20 years. I was a politician. Writing this book was the hardest project ever taken on. And I by a factor of 10, writing a novel is so difficult to make it tight. It's only 63,000 words, so it's a short, tightly worded document. I've never faced a challenge like that, and it was 2 years of obsession to get it written. And
Wow.
so I'm going to promote the heck out of it for the next 6 months, and hopefully it'll catch on somewhere. Someone will read it and say, if 5 people out of this podcast pick up and read it and learn something, I'll be a happy man.
And I'll tell you, I've said it before on a couple occasions on this podcast. I have the utmost respect for authors. Writing a book and putting your heart and soul into something before you even know if other people will read it, but just the magnanimous task that it is to write a book, to me, commands a lot of respect. Well, nothing respect for authors. I don't know if I can do it.
Work job, let me tell you.
Right, that's the thing. You're on your own. You're doing this. You're hoping for the best. It's a long process.
I was pretty lucky. I had some. I continually reached out, like I did in business, and like I did, maybe not as much as I should have in politics, but reached out to people I respected and asked their opinions. Do you think this works? Is this sound right to you? So I got a lot of feedback, but ultimately you have to take the various feedbacks and try and scoop it all, put it back together, and put it into writing. Countless revisions.
Countless revisions.
I couldn't even begin. When I got into the final parts of working with the publisher, we went through 5 massive editing processes, and I thought I had given them perfection, and there was 5 more after that. And eventually you never finish a book. You finally just abandon it. You say, enough is enough. I can't go on.
Right.
It's diminishing returns. That another 5 hours on this book isn't going to make it much better.
Right.
Worse. So let's just keep focused.
Better to be published than that.
I drew a lot from my experience in business, as a founder and CEO for 20 years at Callian Group. I took a lot of my background in technology. I even borrowed from politics because, being mayor of the city of Ottawa was an exciting, not very rewarding, but an exciting.
Not very rewarding? Oh, that's too bad.
Tips. Nobody gave me tips. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Everybody else gets rich when they go into politics. Me and Donald Trump, we lose money going into politics. I think they're afraid to try and bribe us. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
But there's just so much about understanding how systems work and how people work. One interesting thing that came out of politics is came up with a plan for a new way of governing ourselves, Digital Governance 3, DGov 3. You can pick it up on priorarts.io. We came up and applied for a brand new way of integrating direct and representative democracy together using blockchain. And
interesting.
And I never would have thought that you could actually combine direct democracy with representational democracy. And, the thing that John Locke came up with in the 1600s, how do you merge that in such a way that it makes sense? Well, you can't unless you use today's technology, AI, blockchain, all the various communication tools. So you can actually get to a world where individuals like you and I can in fact still have some influence on the way they're being governed. So
Interesting.
that I didn't go into that in this book. I didn't have room for it. And I never would have been able to come up with a different way of looking at democracy and governance unless I'd been mayor for 4 years. So there's a real benefit out of being a politician is I was able to go back and say, well, how can we do this better? And I use an example. If you have a small city and with 10 reps running the city and 9 of the reps are really cheap and they don't want to buy a new fire truck, but 1 rep does want to buy a new fire truck, you can actually now go back to the people and say, who do you support? Do you support the 9 that don't want to, or do you support the 1 guy who does? And they come back and say, 90% of the people support the 1 guy who wants to buy a new fire truck. Well, then he's got 90% of the influence in the vote. But you can do that securely with today's technology. You still have the benefits of representational democracy. And occasionally you can go back and get a sense for what people feel without having to go to a referendum. You just go back. You've argued it out. There's two positions here. The people support this position. That's a different take on democracy.
Something to explore for sure. I mean, democracy should be ever evolving.
Well, we haven't made any changes to our democracy in 450 years. And technology is here that we can make those changes if we wanted to.
Yeah.
But the old rule still applies. It takes a generation or 2 for people to adopt new technologies. And I think that's another reason why we're afraid of AI, because it won't take a generation or 2. It'll be instantaneous.
It'll be here sooner than we think. Now, I would say the exception to that rule was COVID, where we had a lot of technology. Zoom was around long before COVID was. But I mean, what was the uptake? As soon as COVID hit and everyone's working from home, all these hybrid workplaces, that was almost unheard of before. I mean, it was the dream for most people before COVID, right?
No, COVID forced a lot of things. You're absolutely right. I'm still a member of some clubs that only meet on Zoom.
Right.
We did it by necessity through COVID. We couldn't get together.
So the adoption process is slow for a lot of these things. Change is difficult, adapting to new things, and I assume there's a lot of fear.
The difference between successful people and people who don't move ahead is there's a whole list of things, but one of them is being able to adapt to change.
Sure.
Embrace
Absolutely.
change. Embrace the future. Lean into the future as opposed to trying to resist it.
Yeah.
And,
you can't resist it.
You can't resist it. We just have to understand it. We have to master it to a certain extent. Our hero very quickly relies on AI to do things for him, like write full-fledged reports on certain things. And he's found reflecting, why this is handy. This is easy. It would have taken me 3 days to do that. And the damn thing did it in 1 minute, 35 seconds. And it could be a great accelerator for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And, I used it as a research assistant, and I used ChatGPT-4 as a research assistant on my book. If I wanted to know what happens inside of a nuclear explosion, what actually happens inside, I could spend 2 hours, 3 hours researching it, doing Google searches, or I could simply say to Chat, give me a description of what happens at the molecular level when.
Right.
There it is. And it's not written very well and not written in the voice you want, but it gives you the facts most of the time.
Yeah. And
the other thing about the early days of AI is it's really good, but occasionally it just makes shit up. So you
got to be careful there, right?
Be careful that you don't get caught in that make shit up thing. But once you sort of understand that, it's a great accelerator, being able to do things and do things well.
Shifting gears really quickly, I don't want to spend too much time on this because this AI and your book is so awesome and such a great topic. When you started Calian, did I hear correctly that you started that like on a shoestring with like $35 or something like that?
I use that to open a bank account. and I bootstrapped myself up from there. It was a one-person consulting company, so I contract and make some money, put that money in the bank, and I just built it up from there. And my standing joke is, if I'd known where it was going, because now it's a $500-600 million a year business, I would have borrowed another $35. Building Calian was not easy, but it was pretty simple, because I had started a company 2 years before then called Instacall, where I made every single mistake possible to make in 6 short months and went into bankruptcy. Not the clean corporate bankruptcy, the rub your nose in the pee. First, so 1979, the nice thing about that is I was at the end of it able to write a book called Ethical Entrepreneurship. I had 2 years of recovery after screwing up a company, and the question asked is, how could someone as smart as I thought I was screw up so badly? And the truth was, I wasn't that smart, and that I didn't have the right value system in place to make decisions, because success isn't one decision. Success is thousands of decisions, and you have to be able to shortcut the decision making process. I came up with my own way of looking at options that I had, because you're always faced with 2 or 3 different options to go everywhere, especially during the early days of a business. Is it an honest decision you're making? By honest, I don't mean are you telling the truth. I mean, have you dug deep enough into the facts that you know the facts that you're making? Perfect. Does it solve the problem you're facing for the long term, not for the short term? And I've always found that the long-term solution always, and I mean always, produces the shortest term results, because it puts you on the same rail as other people, the same line as other people who are thinking long-term.
Okay.
They will bring business. You'll have Factor X will come into your life, and you'll be given opportunities that you didn't even know existed. Third, does the decision add value to everybody in the equation? The workers, the employees, yourself, your customers. Does it add value? How many, is there someone where this hurts? And if so, what can you do to mitigate that harm? And the fourth one is never, ever, ever buy your banker a lunch. And by that, I mean, be prudent with your resources, intellectually and financially, because bankers, lawyers, accountants, they can take more at the back door of your business with a teaspoon than you can bring in the front door with a shovel. So you have to be really careful about your resources, and don't waste your resources on idle things. So with those 4 tools, when I started Calian in 1982, September 23rd, 1982, my goal was to take it public in 10 years. And we went public 10 years later, 1993, September 23rd, same day.
Wow.
The start of the company. 10 years later, we took it public, and went from there. And I was blessed to have a really good group of people who bought into the same value systems. It wasn't just me. It was me, and then it was 5 of me, and then it was 100 of me. And I think they now employ a couple thousand, maybe 2,500 people, 3,000 people. I don't know. I'm not intimately involved in the company anymore.
Not anymore. No. Right.
I left the CEO in 2006. That was the same year that I became mayor of Ottawa, and left the board in 2012.
What led the decision to leave Calian to run for mayor?
Well, I was getting bored.
You're getting bored. Okay.
ADHD, what they call it. I'd met my goals. I'd taken the company from zero, literally zero, to I think we went public. Our sales were about 35 million. So I'd taken it from 0 to 35 million in 10 years. That was my goal. I achieved my goal, and I knew I was achieving my goal. And I got bored. I said, okay, done what I wanted to do in business, and checked that off my bucket list. For a while, I looked at the company as my child. Now, with a fantastic management team that they have in place there, run by a guy called Kevin Ford, I look at it as my grandchild, because I'm attached from it. But it's just a wonderful company that keeps on growing. And there was 7 companies that went public in 1993, and all of them except Calian have either been bought out by an American company or gone into business.
Interesting.
So Calian is the only one of the class of 93 that has stayed an independent company and has its own independent growth path for the future. And couldn't be more proud of that company. And I wish I could take credit for what they've done in the last few years, but I can't. It's just the only thing I can take credit for is creating a culture of be honest, think long term, add value, and pick the bankers out of your your office as often as you. And I think they still work to those basic premises in terms of values for driving the company.
They stuck to the foundation. That's good.
I think well, obviously they have, because they've just been, so successful. And, I'm just so proud to have been the grandfather of that company.
That's awesome. Okay, now, so you went on to become mayor of Ottawa. Now, I'll tell you my take on this because I live in Ottawa and I'm born and raised. Love the city. At the risk of sounding like a fanboy, I was kind of thrilled to see here's a guy with a business background. He's going to go in and just clean the place up because he's going to try to get it to run like a well-oiled machine. And I thought, I'm going to vote for this guy for sure.
Thank you.
But I'm going to wish him well because he's going to piss off a lot of people going in trying to do that. I want to equate it to like a bull in a china shop. I don't know if that's exactly what you did, but I feel like you had an uphill battle.
You're so close to the truth. One of the senior city managers came into my office early on, like within 2 weeks of me being in the office, and looked at me and said, "Look, you're not going to beat us. There's 16,000 of us and only one of you."
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's gotta hurt.
So you're a politician. Your job is to get reelected. Your job is not to run the city. Your job is not to make changes.
Oh.
And in retrospect, it was accurate because I battled as hard as I could, but it was hard to win. It's almost impossible. Whatever you did, they were going to do something to screw it. But having said that, I brought to bear something I hadn't done very often. I started using management by chaos. And I got a lot of things done. We got a lot of things done during those 3 years, but not because people wanted to get them done. It's people didn't know they were doing them. We stopped the above ground LRT and we went to a tunnel. Got screwed up in the execution, but we put in the new Congress Center. There was just lots of things that we did. But the most important thing we did was nobody ever sees. When I was elected, they had 80 different financial control centers that didn't talk to each other.
Right. How can you do that? Like you can't do that in business, right? That wouldn't make sense.
15 municipalities came to one.
Yeah.
In amalgamation in the year 2000, nobody bothered to finish the amalgamation job, which is getting your information systems together. Right. How much cash do we have? How much cash do we owe? And what are our assets? And I didn't get that till near the end, like the last 6 months of my term. But every week I would meet with them. What are we doing? We got it down to one system. Okay. But it took us 4 years. And it took 2 or 3 different groups of people coming in to help us. I had $1 a day guys that came in and volunteered their time to try and help the city through that. I think it's probably working pretty well now. I don't pay much attention to municipal politics anymore. I flew too close to the sun and my wings burned. And there's a big difference between politics and business. Nick, in business,
yes, there is.
If I help you become a better podcaster, I become better. Someone buys some of your viewers will buy my book, right? They're fantastic. Right. Helps you. Politics, that's called bribery and corruption.
I know, it's ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's very difficult to bring business acumen to politics. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in the States if Trump gets reelected. And I'm saying that because he was a business guy, went in. He's a bull in a china shop and kind of a person most of the time. But I met him. I had a chance to meet him personally, and I liked it. He was like one-on-one. It was like you and I talking right now. Yeah. But he had a chance. He got pillared in his 4 years, and he had all these things. And he's pillared for another 4 years. But all that time, I can't believe a guy that this is going to be thinking about what he's going to do if he gets back in. And I think if we're really going to see what a business person can do in politics, we'll see it if Trump gets reelected in November 6th, because now he's prepared. He's seen the worst of it. He's put a really great team together with Elon Musk, and I think that's 6 or 7 people that are pretty well tuned to moving yardsticks. And he's going to know what he's up against this time. So he's not going to go in unprepared. And I'm excited. Now we don't have a dog in the fight there, but excited, not from a political perspective, but from an operational perspective. What will happen if he gets back in? Because this is a guy that's been kicked in the head many times. He's going to go in and make some changes. What, as a businessman, is he going to do now that he understands how politics work? People come to me and say, I'm thinking about getting into politics. I say, you're out of your mind. You don't know what you're up against. But he, for some reason, wants to go back in.
Yeah, he knows already. Yeah.
He knows.
And it's a world stage. Yeah, it's a world stage. He's willing to do it again. And wow. And like you said, he got beat up and he gets beat up all the time. To be fair, he's a little antagonizing. So he's out there rubbing people the wrong way. It's part of his campaign, really. But yeah, more power to him, I guess.
Are you going to look at his results, or are you going to look at, his personality? I think 70 or 80% of the people who are undecided are having problems voting for him because of who he is, because of his person, not because they all like his policies. They all like that he's going to make the place safer and maybe bring back some fundamental financial balance to the country. Everyone likes that. His character is a problem.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a character. You were a similar sort of character in terms of you wanted to go in and you had policies that you wanted to implement, but your personality wasn't so, you weren't antagonizing. You weren't out there to really ruffle feathers.
I paid the price for it emotionally. I'll be real blunt.
Yeah, was that difficult emotionally?
Really tough. I wanted to be successful, and I had never in my life had so many people take shots at me. Remember, municipalities are the last bastion of socialist success. Many years ago, the Russians produced books saying, if you want to take over the America and the States, you go in at the municipal level. And the municipal level is filled with people who are not completely, but mostly, I'd say over 50% of the people have very strong socialist leaning. They have to, because this is where the people and the government come together. This is where they pay their taxes. I mean, you think about the number of services the city offers: water, parks, electricity. I mean, you just go on. There's over 100 different services you get from the municipality. So it's in contact with the people. And so you have to be a bit of a socialist to really enjoy doing that. I didn't know that. I was a bit naive about that. When I was elected, I got a call from the Prime Minister, because it was very unique for a conservative to be elected as mayor of the city of Ottawa. It's been a liberal stronghold at the municipal level. And I jokingly said, I have the second best job in Ottawa. And it was Stephen Harper at the time, and he laughed and he said, second best by a long shot. I have a party standing behind me. You're soon going to have a seat. And he was right. You're one person. But say 20 of the 23 councillors I had significant leanings to the left. And so it was me and maybe 3 or 4 people who wanted to do some of the things I talked about during the campaign. But on council, in the weak mayor model that happened in Canada, the mayor's only one vote.
Yeah, right.
It's only one vote. Now, you do have some other controls that I didn't understand, and I can hold up finance. I can hold up money going into certain wards if they don't agree. I can do all the dirty politics, but I refuse to do it. I didn't know about it until halfway through the term, that I could put a hold on things for the councillors if I wanted to. But some of the things I put a hold on hurt people, as opposed to, the councillor freely signed everything they wanted, but to them that was a sign of weakness. The councillors were used to being whacked over the head by a strong mayor using those techniques.
Interesting.
I naively thought that if I worked with them, they would change. But you can't change a person's worldview, and their worldview is not the same worldview as I had. And anyways, it was really tough. It's one of the reasons why I'd never go back into politics. I'm not tough enough.
Not tough enough.
Not tough enough. I'm resilient. I don't like it. If I get knocked over, I'll get back up. But yeah, it hurts.
Yeah, it would. I'm not ever thinking I need to run for mayor of the city, because no matter how great you are at it, there's always so many people against you, and you hear about them all the time. You hear from them all the time.
I remember afterwards, and I've known Jim Watson a long time. He clobbered me, as a matter of fact. But I was at somewhere, and it was me and him standing together, and someone came up to him and tore a strip off him from top to bottom, calling him all sorts of ugly names, right? To the point I was going to step in and push the guy away. I'd never had that level of dirt thrown at me. And the guy walked away, and Jim turned around and carried on talking as if nothing had happened.
Right. Like, how can you do that? It's just wild.
That's awful. Some of us are built that way. Some of us are not. I'm not built that way.
Same. Thick skin is not that thick for sure. Now, so when you went into it originally, eyes wide open or, naive, whatever, didn't know how it was going to all work out. Did you think, look, I'm going to go in, I'm going to clean up the city, and I'm going to run for as many terms as I can? Or did you think I'm going to go in 4 years, that's it, in and out?
I actually didn't expect to win.
Really?
I wanted to run in the federal election, which is coming up, I think, 6 months after the municipal level. And I wanted to learn a little bit about campaigning. And it's so easy to run for mayor. You just put your name in, and sign a check, $125, you go in, put a little team together. When I went in, my name recognition in the city of Ottawa was 4%. I mean, it was nothing. There was no recognition. It was zero. And as I watched it climb, as I watched my support climb, I became very excited. I like to win. And so when I won, I honestly said, how did I just win? And then I said, okay, I'm here. This is an opportunity. And then and only then, I focused completely on the process of winning. When I was in there, I said, okay, now let's get that list of campaign things, promises I made. And let's get down to doing exactly what you said. Let's try and clean the city up. And I didn't think any further out than the 4 years that I was in.
Okay. And
then, of course, the other side, they orchestrated a bus strike that was bad. They orchestrated some other things in county court that were not good for me. So, I was just being pummeled from all angles. And the idea of winning a second term was out, but I wanted to get Lansdowne Park through. And I wouldn't have run if Jim Watson had simply said right at the beginning, I'm going to let Lansdowne Park go forward.
Okay.
And he didn't do that until a month before the election. And I said, okay, I sort of gave up at that point. So that I realized it wasn't, that he would be a better guy for going forward.
But you still ran for re-election.
I did run for re-election, but wow. but then I was half-hearted, unfortunately. And I convinced myself. My ego got in the way. I convinced myself. I had some good counsel say, "You're not going to win this. You know that."
Hold my beer. Yeah.
Hold I'm going to show you. And then of course, there's a whole other group of people who make their living helping people. So you raise money. And there's a whole group of people who get paid. Your campaign managers and your director of communications, they all make $10,000, $15,000 for part-time work, taken out of the campaign funds. And so they're going to be very positive.
Sure.
So I let myself trick. I let myself be seduced by my own ego again, which is another lesson. I thought I'd beaten that out of me back in 1990, but in politics, I had to learn that it needs to be beaten out again. And it got beaten out. And
it got beaten out?
I think my ego is pretty much subdued now.
And now, can I assume that you have no further aspirations for federal government?
At 76 years old, there's no chance. By the way, for a 76-year-old white guy,
to
get a book published, almost impossible. Because the publishers don't work with an older person because they want to build up a name so that the person can write numerous books, follow-on books, right? That's how they make.
Oh, fair. Right. So it's all about the series. Right.
And so they look with, okay, how many books has this guy got in him? He's 76, maybe one. Where they're looking for people who might be able to write 20, 30 books, build up a following, that sort of stuff. And it's a business. I understand. That's why I'm putting so much effort into marketing 2028. Tomorrow is the day.com.
I like the fact that you used some tools, some AI type of tools to help you write your book. I find it shows kind of where we are with AI today, but the things that are kind of really helpful I don't know, the microwave when it came along. That was kind of a helpful tool that came along just to help us out a little bit. You have things like Grammarly where you can pop everything in and get instant feedback.
I think it's also something else that I just discovered that, like, I've been promoting my book on X, on the old Twitter,
Yep.
and on Facebook. On the old Twitter, by using some very select criteria, I got 3.5 million impressions.
Wow.
From all over the world, from Pakistan, because part of the book is in Pakistan, where Pakistani scientists is helped by AI to create room temperature fusion. From Saudi Arabia, where a Saudi Arabian prince in this book got very angry at this super secret intelligence agency called B613 that had shifted him on something. I mean, I got responses from all over the world. And I thought, the reach now, like, someone says, what's your book launch going to be like? Well, when I think, what can I have in a book launch? 40 people in a room, and it's going to cost me
Right.
a few grand. Whereas the same few grand put into promoting X gets me a reach to 3.5 million people.
Wow.
Holy jumping.
Those are big numbers.
Crazy.
That's fantastic.
And this is the first time that I've gotten personally involved in marketing something using the internet. And it's mind-boggling power, this one tool. So these are tools that we now have in our hands. Now add to that AI. When I put an ad out, I probably got 50 responses from AI-based bots asking me how they can help further promote my book. And this is what it's going to cost you. But you can tell they're all the same AI. Some
Yes.
engaged AI to respond to my ad.
That's so neat. But that's like you said, if like you're leaning into the technology. So if we want to bury our heads in the sand, that's not going to do us any good. If you lean in and you understand how it works and how far reaching it is, definitely that gives you a better perspective and pause for thought in terms of, okay, well, is this good? Is this bad? Whereas if you stick your head in the sand, you try to ignore it and hope it goes away, that's not going to work.
No,
It's here. AI is here. It's only going to keep evolving. We were talking about the art world. I know that big thing was people were generating AI art, and the first iterations of the AI that was doing it would always put a weird number of fingers on people, or they can't put text in to the images. But you clean those up, you're going to have a really hard time figuring out what was generated by AI and what wasn't. So I think people need to lean in and understand, hey, this is coming. We need to think about the ramifications. Is this good? Is this bad? And start thinking of regulating this sort of stuff.
guardrails we put up.
Exactly. Right. A lot of governments were way behind on the curve when it's come to trying to regulate the internet, for instance. I want to say 20 years too late. Governments didn't realize how far reaching the effects would be and what's going on. I think they're still playing catch up.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so hopefully, in a relatively easy to read sci-fi thriller, that another small percentage of the population can sort of deal with I call it the book club. On my website, www.2028tomorrowsaday.com, there's a section of book club questions.
Nice.
It's good to jump into the book club questions, because those are the things that the book clubs should be asking and discussing and doing their own investigation, coming out to their own conclusions. Because political will is going to be important here. Political will is going to be finding what will push some of the politicians into making some of the right decisions. I don't think it's too late. I think we needn't fear it. We just need to try and figure out how to master it.
We need to discuss it. Yeah, master it. We need to be on top of it. If we can get ahead of it, it shouldn't be a problem. Otherwise, there's going to be some nasty surprises if we wait too long and fool around. Have you always been a big sci-fi guy?
Oh yeah, I've enjoyed reading sci-fi, Asimov, and there's just so many out there and also some fantasy. One of my favorite fantasy writers is Ray Bradbury. Man, his writing is music. He's just a hugely talented writer, and I've always had what they call ample imagination. How might it look if I did this, this, and this, and this? And one of my great enjoyments in life is being able to make those things a reality, to buy an old house and fix it up, to start a company and build it. To the reason I got into physics field is I just had a huge interest in semiconductors, and I wanted to study semiconductor physics. So I studied semiconductor physics, and luckily, for the first job, the only job offer I got was there was only one job in Canada to be a technology assistant to a bunch of British engineers that came over to start a semiconductor company in Canada. And I just lucked out and got it. So I've had these blessings, huge blessings in my life to be at the right spot at the right time. So part of it is timing. And so it's been, like I said, being born in 1949 for me was perfect time, because I got to see all this stuff. The transistor was invented in the United States in 1949. So I was born the same.
There you go. Big year. Big year. Important things came into the world, 1949.
Well, and Newfoundland came into Canada in 1949.
There you go.
So there you go.
Right.
Bigger.
Awesome. It's interesting. I find that the people who are successful entrepreneurs tend to have interests in sci-fi and fantasy. And I feel, you can see that in the people that want to create. They have creative minds. They're always daydreaming and thinking, and they like to get lost in those kind of worlds and maybe draw on some of those other ideas. So they draw on other ideas from other people. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. That's why I asked you if you're into sci-fi, because it seems to be a very popular trait amongst.
I think it was T.S. Eliot that said,
entrepreneurs.
someone was asked, what's the difference between good writers and great writers? And great writers steal. They use their imagination and they build upon things.
It's all building, right?
Self-building.
Yeah. You're not stealing, it's building, it's improving upon.
He used that phrase for dramatic effect.
Of course.
I'm very positive about the future of humanity. There's just so much in front of us. I mean, the literacy rate has never been lower in the world. The hunger rate has never been lower in the world. I mean, despite everything you see on TV, we're living in pretty good times.
Good.
Let's just make sure that we keep that going that way.
Yes. Got to get rid of some of that fear, see the good for the good. Now, I know right now we're focused on this book and promoting it and getting it out there, making sure everyone's reading it and talking about it. And did you say you have another book in you, possibly?
Yeah, maybe one more. Maybe I want to carry on from this one.
And like a sequel type thing?
This one runs from 28 to 38.
Okay.
And maybe I want to go into what happened. And I haven't decided whether I'm going to say the experiment from 28 to 38 worked or the experiment from 28 to 38 didn't work. Probably more commercial if I say it didn't work and what actually happened.
Right.
Oh God, no. We'll see. I tried to put that in the back burner only because I do know that right now my job, and it's kind of exciting. Like I said, so 3 million plus people responding to my X ads. Huge impression. To me, it blows my mind. So I'm learning a lot about how you promote yourself, promote something on the internet. And there's lots of people who are prepared to help you, but I sort of like to dig in and do it. So
get your hands dirty. Yeah. Right.
Someone come along and, say, we can take what you've done now and ramp it up and 10x if you let us. Then it'll be a value proposition. Is it worth it? How much is it going to charge to do that? So we'll see.
All right.
Right now, I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
You're having a lot of fun.
And that's podcasts. Awesome. I want to do as many podcasts as I can. So
the future.
10 people buy the book and 2 people learn something from it, then that's a huge success.
Fantastic. That's great because you're on a podcast. So you're in the right place for sure. Right now, podcasts are a big thing. So lean into it. Might as well. Can't fight it. Good way to get your message out there for sure.
Thank you, internationally. I appreciate the time you've taken.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. I appreciate you having on here. And I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me, my humble little podcast. And I'll be sure to get a copy of your book and learn more about the implications of AI and get the imagination going for sure. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure completely.